Yo, how's everyone doing? This is Mr. Anderson, True Crypto 28 on Twitter. All right, so we're going to do another tutorial video on the indicator True Vibration. If you're watching this, I'm assuming you probably watched the other tutorials. I'm basically going to continue to roll these out just to help people with the process of learning how to utilize this tool. There are many ways. There's a lot of intricacies, etc. So we're just going to talk about a few of those as we go along, but I want to keep the videos shorter, so I'll drop this one. Today is going to be, we'll call it trend scalping. Ultimately, I know a lot of people might consider scalping a much shorter type of trade. I mean, when I got into the trading game a long time ago, Microsoft or any type of stock would trade on what they call teenies, right? So you'd have it would be $20 and 1/16, and then it would go to 20 and an eighth, 20 and 3/16. So I'm showing my age, but what we would do is we'd look to scalp the teenies at that point. So those were a lot quicker type trades, and I understand that's probably how most people think of a scalp. So you can call this low time frame trend trading. I didn't sleep much last night. Or you can classify it as low time frame scalp. It's up to you how you look at it. Regardless, the idea is we're just going to go over some techniques here that you can utilize. So what is the setup? First and foremost, you go into your good old, I've removed, just so you can see here, I removed moving averages and volume, things of that nature, just so we can have a slightly clearer picture. I went over here to give me 3 screens, right? So I'm looking at 3 screens of my True Vibration. And the first thing I have to do is the setup. So the setup is going to be daily scale on my left side, 4 hour on my right side, 4 hour in the center, 10-minute on the right side. As I mentioned, I didn't sleep, so I'm probably going to make a bunch of little mistakes. I'll try to catch them if I do. So here we go. First one, I need the daily here. 4 hour, 10-minute. So let's just set up this left side first. And all I'm looking for is a trending scenario where I'm going to be green. Now, this is a multi-step setup, okay? So first and foremost, I'm just going to mark it off. And right here is where we went green, right? So it wouldn't have been green here. It would have went green there. So I'm going to go ahead and mark off the areas and where we were green. And then at that point, we went from green to the black, which is more of a neutral on that scale. So this is daily scale, where we were green, right? Which is the trending indicator. Again, I'm assuming that you watched the other videos. If not, you probably want to watch some of those first and get yourself a little bit more familiar with this particular tool. Okay, so here we go. Forgive me, I'm just going to mark off another word, so I have a couple different areas. I am going to try to run through this, but I'm going to make sure you understand the specific points here. So what did I do? I marked off the daily first, right? So here I am, daily. I'm going to go ahead and click here, which is going to give me the same spot on the 4 hour. Remember, this is a triple setup here. So what's going to happen is the first thing I always want to do when I'm reviewing these to show people is that I'm not cherry picking anything, right? I'm just popping in here and we can look at whatever we look at. It's not meant to show you that the greatest trades in the world. I'm going to pick any spot. I would actually hope to find some bad ones, and we will, right? You're going to lose some trades, etc. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to look for now 4 hour, right? So I have the daily green. That's what these two spots are. And in real time, how would it look? Just so you understand. It would be like this, right? Because it would be active, and then you would go to your screen and see, all right, well, am I green on the 4 hour, right? But since we're looking in hindsight, just to give you some understanding of how it would do, we'll click on this area. I'll go ahead and bring this up. And I always want to go to the next candle, because this is where the candle had began. I'm going to go to the next candle so it doesn't look like I'm cheating and cherry picking here, which would be right there. So I will actually mark it off. There you go. So this particular day, instead of this. Now, sometimes what will happen is you'll be green here and get your green on the 4 hour. So you can participate in this as well. But we're going to act like that doesn't exist right now. Okay. So I'm going daily 4 hour. But that's not to trade. Okay. So it's daily 4 hour. I'm just setting up the area because you would normally be looking at these in real time. So basically what I'm going to do is show you. Let me shrink this a little bit. I'm going to show you exactly the area that we're going to be focusing on, which is the 4 hour. And I'll take it to where we went from green to black again, so where we lost the trend, right? That's that one. And then if it comes back, you can see over here, same scenario. I'm green and green. So I'm going to mark these off now, as I mentioned, just so that I can have them. And I do want to go to the next day, as I mentioned. So we went green there on the daily. I'm going to go right there. Oh, that's just to there. Only this is the part I'm looking at. Green. And then when I lost it, went black. So that lost that trend on the 4 hour, right? So you can see that it still continued on the daily. So we'll see if it came back. It did not. So that's fine. That's the only area I'm looking at. So for this point, I'm going to get rid of the big box because that was the area that I wanted to highlight. I'll get rid of this big box as well because the only thing that's going to matter now are these zones. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it to a 10-minute. Now, I'm going to take it to a 10-minute because 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute, just too choppy for me. I mean, for my taste, the way I trade specifically, I feel that it's too choppy. Now, I understand there are certainly ways to do it, and we could talk about those down the road of how you would trade on 1 minute, 5 minute. But as far as a consistent trend trading type of setup that I'm looking for here, meaning a low time frame trend trading, what I'm going to look for is basically something that's not going to give me as much chop on the lower time frame. And with the 5 minute, I can have the perfect setup, and I might get stopped out a few more times anyway before catching my big one. So I tend to look at like a 10-minute or 15-minute, etc. You might like a 15-minute or 30-minute. The problem is what you'll end up noticing is that then sometimes you might miss the pullback. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Let me just go ahead and enlarge this now. You guys agree here that we've picked out areas where we clearly are daily and then 4-hour green. And now I'm going to go ahead and match that on this 10-minute because I've already highlighted it. And it's very simple. Watch how simple this is. All I'm looking for is what? Another scenario where I go green again. So, and this is going to work pretty simple. And all I'm looking for really is one leg up. And then after that, you can make your own decisions basically. But we get a signal right there because we go green, right? So on the close of that candle, yes, I am green. Okay, I would take a long here. By the way, very quickly, so you have an understanding, and I'll go ahead and show this. I do want to keep this video as short as possible. I'm going to always try to get myself to the most recent pivot, right? And then more than likely, what I'll do is I'll say indicator, ATR, average true range, bring that up. I like to set that average true range to about 20 or 30, depending on the time frame I'm on. Let's just use 20 for the sake of this conversation. So I set it to 20, and all that's going to tell me is at the time of my entry, I'm going to look down at this number right here, and it's going to tell me, okay, let me set my stop about 11, 12 bucks below where I am. So that's about 820 in that range. So let's just put it right about there, right? And that's it. I just want to give myself a little bit of room in case there's a hunt, right? And like I said, if there's been some more active volatility, I might actually go ahead and set this to about 30. Just like that. So let me shrink this down because I only need it just for that stop. And then, of course, you got to set your risk management, calculate your trading size and things of that nature depending on how far your stop is. Then the other thing is, now we already discovered that this is an entry, but sometimes what will happen is you'll leap in. In fact, often you'll leap into one of these signals. And I'll be honest, in that situation, I prefer a pullback. I prefer a pullback. So sometimes you'll miss it because it'll just go off on you, and that happens. But really what I'm looking for is a pullback. And then if I get something like this, which is a qualified trade, again, if you watch the other videos, then well, this is like a golden scenario because I'm getting the pullback that I wanted. Let's make this a little bigger so you can see it, actually, what it looks like. So here I was, and this was my entry candle, so to speak, or I should call it my signal on my trigger, right? So here's my trigger signal, but I just leaped up, and this is a pretty far stop. So I'm thinking, all right, well, if I have a stop that's a good distance away, let me buy a pullback more than anything else. Now, I've already made the decision that I want to go long. So what would I do here? Ultimately, I'm going to wait for one of these signals to pop up, and as long as it's a qualified signal, again, look back to the other video if you want to see that, but that is certainly a qualified signal right there, and that gives me my long, and what happens? We level up, and that's really all you're looking for. You're really looking for one leg up. Right now, it's up to you. You can hold it. You'll see that sometimes you'll get multiple legs up, and you might hold it till you get a break of structure. You might take some profit here, let the rest run. You might take some profit, see if you get another entry. What I wouldn't do is if I get a good size leg up like this, just so you understand, because technically this is another qualified signal, right? Which is a signal that's higher than the previous one. I get that, but keep in mind you are on a very low time frame and they are designed to chop. So I'm not going to jump around time frames right now, but I can assure you that if I look to a 1 hour, 30 minute, and what I always tell people is don't determine your trade, meaning your time frame, before you do the trade. What do I mean by that? Okay, so if I'm looking at a range like this, I'm not going to say, hey, I'm definitely trading this on the 10 minute. Now, keep in mind, I'm giving you a strategy right now where we are determining the time frame. I get that. What I mean is, in general, if I was looking for a re-entry, I would be skipping around a little bit on the time frames. I'd look at the 15 minute, the 30 minute, and see if I can get a slightly higher time frame to give me a signal, because I would trust that a little bit more, because I would expect this after legging up to range out a little bit, right? So If it is going to go again, that's fine, but I would expect that. Otherwise, you might get chopped out again on a couple re-entries, okay? But let's get back to the point here. The signal was right there. You leg up. Now, you might notice you got another signal right here. So this one was taken off. So yes, technically this was another one, but it's already during the takeoff, so I'm not necessarily looking to get in on that. What happens here, while in the range, I get another signal, which is right here. So ultimately, I would either look to buy a pullback, or if I could get a local low of some sort, again, you can resort back to one of the other videos to talk about that. That would be my next entry if that was the case. So I would like to get a signal. If I don't get that, I'm good with like a local low. There's other ways to do this that I'm not going to jump into on this video with these lines right here that are pretty specific. If you're keen on such things, you can probably look at it for yourself and kind of get an understanding of it, but that's okay. So what happens here? Another signal, great. That means what? We expect to leg up, right? So keep in mind, again, I would have to set a stop. So I'm going to go to my pivot in the structure, right? So wherever my structure low here is on this range, I'm going to start with that. I'm going to go ahead and estimate what my ATR is really quickly, pull it down, give myself a little room in case there's a hunt, right? Now keep in mind, again, you might want to peek at a different time frame also just to see if there's other support resistance. I'm not going to get into the support resistance element right now. I can tell you that we can add that, and of course that's going to be helpful in understanding where those things are, but this is just to give you another strategy right here and to not have too long of a video. And what happens, we leg up very nicely yet again, right? And as we go on, I actually do like this because you end up getting one more signal here, right? So we get another signal, and you'll notice that the box is ended. So what does that mean? That means that we fall out of the remaining signals, right? So any more of these greens were out. So what happens here? I would have ended up with another signal. I probably would have entered somewhere around here, and then it's just chop, 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 chop. My stop would have been down here if I was taking that signal. So technically, two things would have happened. I would have gotten bored of this trade, because I would have been way out here. I might have set the stops too far and not taken it to begin with. I'm not acting like you're going to take every single trade or that you're going to be comfortable with those type of stops. I'm just making a point here. So then ultimately, as we range out, if you were patient, you'll notice that you do get one of these tests, right? And of course, you'd be looking for a close below your scenario, but maybe you got stopped out on that if you were waiting that long. If not, you would have got your leg up. Again, I'm more than comfortable with calling this something that you decided to get out of because this is way too long to wait. Of course, ultimately, I'm fine to wait a little while, right? I might even wait 5, 10, 15 candles depending on the setup and how things look, especially if I'm still in the setup zone. But the fact that I came out that range, it might have made me a little bit nervous. I probably would have got out somewhere in here without much damage. But even if you waited all the way here and took a loss, that happens. As you've seen, you were able to catch some really nice ones, and there is no perfection, right? So then all we do in this situation, we just wait till the setup comes again, right? And that wasn't until these boxes over here. We went ahead and did it as if it was real time just to show you. So what are we waiting for? We're waiting for green. Green happens right there. Let me show you. We'll go ahead and mark it off. So that comes into play. It doesn't matter where it is. Sometimes they'll, especially in the low time frame, you'll get a little trend and then it'll go off, etc. That's fine. Now remember, ideally, if I can, now this one, when it's flat like that, I might just go ahead and enter there anyway. But if not, I'm more than willing to wait for a little bit of a pullback on this low time frame. As I mentioned, let's make this a little bigger so you can see what we're looking at. I get a pullback. I end up getting a signal. Remember, this is a qualified signal. If you look at the previous video, that's good. And then what happens? 11,745, it looks like. We run up to about 11,938. Great, perfect. And then sometimes it's a gift that keeps on giving, right? So you end up coming up. Yes, it's an ugly candle, but qualified signal after another green. I'll take that, right? So you get a pullback and a qualified signal. You're happy to get it. And you end up legging up again. So I wouldn't be looking for anything else until I got green again over here, correct? So that's over here. Same thing. I'm waiting for the next pullback if I can because I'm living up here and my stop would have been over here. And I get one here, end up with a double signal, which is nice. So I get my entry right there. Then what happens? Legs up yet again. I'm not counting any of this because of the fact that I was already in an active trade. So I'm in. Everything's good. We didn't lose structure here. We continue on. That's good. Whether you stayed or took profits or anything along those lines, I'll leave those things to you guys. A couple more signals happened in between, but I'm not suggesting that you would have added anything to this while it's stretching. This is low time frame type trades. Ultimately, what happens, you do get another qualified signal right here because you did not take out this low. But regardless, I'm not suggesting you had to take that, but you do get green here. See the green right here? Now, if this happens, look, that's telling you to go ahead and buy that next local low or wait for one of these signals if you get it. That happens here. Now, I'll tell you this one's a little tricky, right? Because the formation here, probably, I might have missed this one, right? So if I didn't enter in this range, this is one you probably missed because I'm not buying that after that giant candle. But if you did buy it and you said, hey, you know what, I feel good, what's going on, or maybe you decide to buy it intra-candle, which might have happened, it would have been yet another really nice one, as you can see. I'm just not trying to take credit for everything. Sometimes you miss. That's part of trading, right? Come up here again. What happens? You get another signal. Okay, so I'm waiting for what? I'm waiting for one of these guys. So I do get that here. Now, if I was to take this trade, again, I'm never going to say like, oh, yeah, you would have taken that. You have to make those decisions and see if it's a stop too far. Maybe the range is getting too big. Now, keep in mind, you can take it this at stop. That should just shrink your position size, right? So if you're saying, hey, I'm risking 2%, 3%, 4 or 5% if you like it because you feel like it's a high hit rate, then so be it. But just make sure that you're adjusting your position size to put yourself in a position to understand that, hey, if I do get stopped at this distance stop, it's not hurting me as much because I gave myself some room, right? The other thing you don't want to do is have a situation like we just talked about all these winners, right? Winner, 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 winner. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll say, wow, this thing's awesome. It just hit 6 in a row. I'm going to jump on number 7, right? Now, in this case, number 7 would have won. But keep in mind that I see people do that and they go, damn, this thing doesn't work. Well, of course, it's not going to hit every single time. You're going to probably end off with a loss, actually. That's pretty normal. If you got 7 in a row, I'm guessing you're going to be pretty ecstatic. Or sometimes what I might do, if I'm looking at a resistance, I don't think it's going to push through or anything along those lines, then you're not going to continue on, right? But it is what it is. This one does work yet again, comes in right there. And yes, that's yet another nice trade there, okay? So that's the long side of it. You can see that we then lost our signal, so we're done. That's it. That's the trade, right? So let's continue on, though. Let's give you some more examples here so we're not just, let's switch. What do you want to look at? ETH. Let's just use stamp. Same setup, right? Doesn't matter where we're at. Let me just make sure I don't have anything marked off here. So everything's the same, daily, 4-hour, and my 10-minute here, right? So let's just go find a point in time here. Doesn't matter when necessarily. Well, it matters a little bit because I do want to make sure that, well, remember, when I'm going back in hindsight, you might look at this and think like, oh, you're cherry picking. Well, keep in mind, if I choose one that shows with just 1 or 2, I don't know if I can go back that far in a low time frame, but if I just showed you one that just had one little green squirt that came out, it would have never been a qualifier. I just want you to understand that. You can check that for yourself, not making those things up. That's the whole point of this. So yes, I have to pick these examples as to point it out, but watch, let's just show it here so you can see how this would work out, okay? So we start off just by mapping this out here, which is there, okay? Now keep in mind, this thing took off and run, so you might say, well, there's no way you got a position in there. Well, let's find out. And then the next thing I would do, let me shrink this a little bit because I want to put another little rectangle here on top, which is going to match right there. Yes. And then we went green again over here. So I'm just trying to give myself a couple of examples. And maybe we'll get crushed on one of these. I don't know. We'll see. I like to give a couple examples and show you, when things can go wrong as well, because things don't always go right. Okay. All right. So here we go. You end up with these little thin areas, which is fine, right? Because you're just looking for something specific that's going to fit the criteria that you're looking for this particular technique. You can do 50 techniques like this, and you can find more with this tool as well, but I'm just giving you a couple examples. So we've already identified this particular area, right? And we know what we're looking for. And right off the bat, just so you understand, this is green. So let's just act like it doesn't count if you want. I don't mind that at all, but you can see that you would have rolled into that, and basically you probably could have found a pullback, at least bought on this one here. After a little bit of a pullback, you were green, you're waiting for the next, you go, whether you count that or not, I don't really care. I'm not trying to look cool, as I mentioned, but here we go. This is one of these examples here where you go green, and for me, I might have missed this one. This happens sometimes. I'd have to really be I would look at some other things, to be honest with you. But now the fact that I did get a qualified signal here, I actually may have taken this one. But if it stretches out a little bit, it gets a little dicey because you say, well, all right, well, where am I at? And you don't want to buy the top. I like to buy pullbacks just about anything ultimately. So that's my type of thing. But you can see, again, the key here is that when that signal comes, it does stretch yet again. So that's very nice. and then ultimately you end up getting another one here. Now this is good. I basically showed you an area that had some qualifiers and didn't, maybe you had that one here. You would have to have been pretty aggressive to get in, but sometimes it's just the setup doesn't show up, which is fine. Let's go to the next area, which is here. All right, so here we go again. Same setup. So here we are. You might have said, all right, well, I'm stretched, so what am I waiting for? Oh, I'd like to find the next pullback. So this will work two ways, by the way. Whether I figured that, hey, I was ranging here, and I probably would have bought something like this, to be honest with you, just as an example. And you might even have bought these, but the one problem is I do want it to base somewhere so that I can go ahead and set a stop. So this is why I may have avoided this. But if I didn't, I would have bought at a little stop over here and then had one leg up. And again, that's really your goal, right? And then if I got out or not before this, who knows, right? I'm not going to try to tell you that it would always be perfect. But the good news here is that you go green again, right? Which means I'm looking for, ideally, the pullback or the signal, right? So this gives me one. You end up with a double signal here, right? So this is a double qualifier. You got qualifier, again, if you've watched the other videos, but then this is a double qualifier. So neither one of them takes out the low over here. And of course, that'd be one ATR below. And then what you end up finding out is that the patience with this type of strategy really pays off, right? Because you will run into a good amount of these, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, we're talking about an entry somewhere in this 356 to 355 type range, and this thing ran without ever breaking a sweat. Maybe in here you got a little dicey, right? But ultimately, I can tell you pretty clearly that if I've taken out this area, I'm looking back. If I'm taking out this area, I'm just worried about it reclaiming something like this. We're not going to get too much into this, right? And then with a little bit of a backfill, we go again, etc. So I'm letting this guy run ultimately, and you can see it runs and runs and runs. Now, there's probably a bunch of areas in here where you might have, depending on how good you are, shed it a little bit. When shedding is what? Basically taking some profit, looking to buy on a pullback if I can, because I'm in a real hot one. And then some of this here, if you start to learn this, can help you with that too. But let's not act like it did any of that. Just a nice move, no matter what. You would have caught a good piece of it, etc., and been happy. So what do you end up getting, though? You get another one of these. Well, remember, we stretch, so the last thing I'm going to do is buy or add to my position at the high. But if I get an opportunity to get a pullback in these situations, right, where I'm holding structure and then make a local low, then yeah, I'm probably going to buy again here. Again, I don't care if you give credit to this particular strategy for the next trade or not. I'm just telling you that these are things you can do, and it's really your decision to make ultimately, because you're responsible for your own trades. But you can see how effective it can be. Okay, we could try something on the short side. Let me go back to the bigger. Let's clear this out. I don't want this video to go too long, so I'll try to wrap it up in the next 10 minutes if I can. But I do want to give you a few more examples, okay? Red. Okay, so here we go. We're looking for red now. I like this because it gets messy. All right. Now, this would be a whole nother type of strategy that you can do, but we'll talk about that down the road. It's a little more advanced, but let's watch this. So we go daily scale. We're looking red because this would be for shorts, right? So all I did, remember, no cheating here. You went red here, so this is when you would have started paying attention, right? And it really would just be such a quick look so that you have an understanding. You put yourself in a position. Let's just do this one for now, where you say, all right, well, here's where we start. Again, I'm always going to go to the next day when I do these examples like this, so it doesn't feel like I'm cheating and grabbing part of that first move. That's not my intention at all. So I start in the red here. This is fair, and it ends there. We'll see what this gives us, if anything. And then we end up going red again within that, which is good. That's right. You wouldn't have noticed it until right there. And here. And what you notice is that you come out of this structure, or at least out of this trending signal, and majority of the time you're not getting a signal over here to where you're getting bit. So that's one of the nice parts of this particular strategy. It's a little bit safer. Does that mean it's always going to work perfect? Not at all. Not at all. Sometimes you're going to have to take your lumps, right? So ultimately you'll be in a position where you say, all right, well, I tried it today. I missed on 4 of them. All right. But I showed you the example earlier to give you the idea of, like, if that happens, you're also going to run into some big runners on that, where when you start off on a 10-minute time frame and run it up like that, you're going to be pretty happy. 5-10% type runner. That's a good thing, right? And the hit rate on this is actually a little bit higher than you would actually think or expect. So that's a good thing also. All right, so let's get rid of the bigger box. Remember, now I've just highlighted my H4, so I can use that on the 10-minute. I'm just going to jump over here to the 10-minute. So it doesn't seem like we're cherry picking anything at all. Where was my first box? I think this is it, right? Is this it? Yep. Okay. All right. We're going to follow the rules. Now everything's the opposite because we're looking for shorts only. And we would have entered in here. Okay, we understand that we were already in. Now keep in mind, I did cheat a little bit in that I said, hey, well, wait a second. I moved it forward. So technically you would have had part of this. But again, I'm not trying to steal any of, try to steal credit for anything that we're doing here at all. So this leg, maybe if you want to forget it completely, I have no problem with that. Let's just go ahead and skip all this. There are some nice moves in there, but forget it. Let's just wait till we get to the next one, which comes right there. Okay, so here I am. What am I going to do? I'm going to look. I'm on a low time frame, so I better look at the top of my most recent range. I'd go look at my ATR. Go ahead and pop this up a little bit, right? Whatever the measurement is on that one. And now when I went red right here, as I mentioned, I like to wait for a little bit of a pullback because I know I'm going to run into that signal. It's just a natural thought. Like, hey, if I'm daily in H4 bear trending in my momentum, then I'm going to be in a position where I say, all right, well, I'm probably leaping into that on the low time frame, and I need to wait until I bounce back some. Okay, so here that happens, and my entry would have then occurred right there. That looks like it's about 409. So very quickly as we run through, you could see we initially dropped down to about 401, which is fine. But then structure's in your favor, right? No risk here. We don't even really get to backfill, no wicking. And really it makes its way all the way down to about 393. And then if you were still holding on to your full position, yeah, you would have got caught a little bit here, but it's still a nice winner here, no matter how you look at it. So that's that one, basically. Probably, you might have been able to add, by the way, right here, right? Because you do go red again, right? So that would have told you the same thing. So maybe, maybe not, depending on how this candle is. You might have been able to add. Again, we'll leave that to real-time decisions. I never want to make it look or seem better than it is. So then what happens? You see, again, it makes its move, but we're not getting a signal, right? So that's a nice thing about this particular technique. And it puts you into a position here to we say, all right, well, red again right there. What am I looking for? I don't know if this one is going to qualify. I would have basically had a stop. I would have set over here because I was running into it. Me personally, again, I'm not jumping in the midst of that. I like to get some type of pullback. Now, it looks a little different when we go ahead and get up and close and personal here. It'll look like that. And this is, one big problem here is I'm going to tell you straight up that that's a very wide stop. So you would have had to have a small position to begin with, which I wouldn't have liked, right? So you could do a couple things. First and foremost, if you want to be aggressive with it, you could wait for that local high to be established, which happens right there, and then decide, hey, I'm going to tighten up my stop on this one like that. I'm going to bring it to this most recent pivot, right? Or ignore this trade completely. So you might have just left this one alone. If you did, fine, but let's just assume that you went and said, hey, I'm going to be aggressive because I wasn't in a situation where I was ranging out. That would be fine, and it would put you into a position here to you got an entry right there, a little bit of a backfill into your zone, that's fine, and then one leg down. That's all we really can ask for. I mean, that's success here. That's a successful situation where you're talking about, 407.60, and it made it to a low about 402.69. It's very nice. Again, where you decide to take profits, what you look back in terms of support and resistance, supply and demand, etc. That's up to you. But then you'll see here that we ultimately did get another red here. So I do want to show this one. What you'll notice is we never then set the local high, right? We're waiting for the local high. So I mean, you might think like, oh, wait, I got short here and I got burnt. No. I'm waiting for that local high to be set on close, as we mentioned. So I wait for that pullback, a little bit of exhaustion here. And again, you can learn these indicators and understand that this is my exhaustion, right? Now I end up with a qualifier on top of that. So I got a low time frame qualifying trade that helps me out. That is 407. Even if that didn't show up as a qualifier, it's still a short there because of the circumstances that we pointed out, which was signal, waiting to short the next local high. And then I go from 407 in this case. Again, I would have brought my stop over in this area. And in this situation, it went down to approximately 403. So nice little move in a period of an hour that works. Probably got jumped out of somewhere over here. Again, I'm not suggesting that you caught every bit of it. Of course not. I'll let you guys make those decisions. And then, as you can see, things turn green here. You're not in another signal or anything along those lines. Now, we'll continue on. Now, we're out of the box. Let's not forget that, by the way. So once you went out of there, ultimately, you probably would have left that alone. But now we'll move on to the next one. Here we go. This would have been the point where you go red. I'm going to skip this first part because I don't want to take credit for it because you could have missed setup. But if you were to jump in it, it would have been right there. very nice move down. If not, you get in on this signal here and you're waiting again for the next rally, right? And then whether it was this candle or this candle, that was your entry, and then you get another leg down again, right? So that works out very well again. And then what are we waiting for? The next signal. This one, unfortunately, it ran away. I wouldn't have been involved on this particular leg down. However, that means I can go ahead and wait for the next top. That comes in. We get a qualifier in this situation, right? So it's a qualifier on top of it. A little bit of a backfill. This is why we set a stop at our pivot with a little bit of ATR up there. Maybe the size is smaller because of volatility. If that happens, so be it. You're still going to make money when you're right. So don't worry. Because ultimately your risk stays the same, but you're opening yourself up to this nice potential for some downside. And then sometimes when you do that, you might start off with a smaller position because you don't like the risk element, and then sometimes it gives you a double entry or something along those lines where it ranges out and shows some more exhaustion, and that might allow you to get back in. So this is a good example of that because you now go ahead and catch this move on a smaller position, which is a big move, but you get another signal here, which means I'm going to go ahead and happily wait for this to occur right there. Even if I, whether I took this one or this one's probably this one, I'm getting yet another leg down. That's very nice. Guess what I get? Another signal. So I'm happy to, ride it till the wheels fall off on me. Now I'd be a little concerned of the fact that, hey, this is going green, but it's a low time frame. So, especially if I hit 4 or 5 winners in a row like that. So I'm going to put myself into a position here that says, all right, here we go. Right then and there. Now that would have been the entry. Stop would have been here. I'm not going to put it up. Well, let me just put it so we're visually showing, stop would have been something like that. And then chop, chop, chop. Little leg down again. So here I am, entry 384.87. Sometimes these look worse than they are. In reality, you did get your little bit of a leg lower down to 381. But, this candle or this one, I'm probably out. So let's call this one, a break even or a small win at the most. And that's fine. But what you notice is that I'm out long before that takes place, which is good. But I'm still in the zone. So what am I waiting for? Red again. Remember, red, red, red. That's the combo. Red daily, red H4, red 10 minute. Okay. So red again. So what am I looking for? I'm waiting for, let me get rid of this for now. I'm waiting for, I like this one. Because keep in mind, again, so if I get my signal here, you got to decide, am I here? Am I here? Or am I going to set a stop when I see my pivot, right? So a couple things could happen. I like this one because you could have got yourself in trouble here, right? So you got to say, oh, wait a second, this is part of the low time frame element. Sometimes you get a divergence or something along those lines. So if you did go for the tight one, you would have had a loss here. That's going to happen. It's not all wins, right? If you went for the distant stop, which is always obviously a little bit safer, well, then you would have had another win. You actually might have seen this as another place to add, etc. But the patience here is going to chop you up a little bit at some point or get you probably a small victory. You do see some other signals come into play here. Probably get an entry here, get a little scared, get one more leg down, and you're probably out here. So again, small wins. Those are small wins on that side. But what you notice is that it's a lot more wins than losses. So the hit rate on this is pretty good. Did we have any others? I don't want to go too long now. Let's just switch back to Biddy, good old Bitcoin for now, because I do want to show you something else. Okay, so now you've seen that, and you understand that element, and that one is good. But what you'll notice is that you don't find too many trades, right? And one thing that there's not going to be a million trades on that. Of course, some of these particular cryptos don't have the history, right? So if they don't have the history, it is what it is. But what I would tell you is that you don't have to do daily to 4 hour to 10 minute, right? I can go daily to 1 hour. Okay, so I'm going to go daily to the 1 hour. It doesn't matter where I choose here. Let's what did we do last? Let's do another short. I think last time on the Bitcoin we did a long. So let's just see right there. I'm red. I'm just doing my setup first on the daily. Right there. So remember, we went daily 4 hour, 10 minute, but now we're going to go daily 1 hour, 10 minute. And you'll see that you'll have more options. Now, hit rate might not be as high, but you're going to have more options. And then something like this is, you get a little more advanced here, but this is something you should be able to hit on for sure as well. We're not going to talk about this on this video. I like this because this gets a little ugly during our signal here down here. So let's just see if this catches us or not, because I always like to point out the bad stuff too. And let me just switch it to the 1 hour now, which is here, so that I can zone in specifically on where it would have taken place. Now remember, again, in real time, you just would have seen, oh, I'm in a red on the daily. Let me look for my red areas on the 1 hour. Yes, I'm here. Good. And you would only be working on the 10-minute, keeping an eye on that 1 hour, because if it comes out of the red, then obviously you know that those signals aren't live anymore. Okay. Now look, I'm going quick. I suggest take some notes, right, for sure, and probably watch the video a few times just so you can put yourself in a position to better understand exactly what I'm doing here. Let's just go ahead and take this whole area. Since it chops a few times, might add some more chop to us, which again is good because I like to point out the struggles as well. There's no perfection. You see, we started going red and then orange and then red, so that's fine. Let's just act like you played it all. Is there any more? This is, see some jumpiness here, so let's just add that right there. That's a little one. Let's add this right there. Again, I'm just marking this off so I can show you the examples right there. Okay, and now let me get rid of the bigger box that I was using for the daily, and we'll bring up our 10-minute. Okay, so this is different, right? Now we're daily, so 1 hour to 10-minute. Okay, daily 1 hour, 10-minute. So 10-minute activates here. Again, whether you decide to jump in on this first one or not, completely up to you ultimately. But remember, I would have been getting a signal here. So let's just say we didn't catch this one, but you end up getting another signal. So you're looking to go ahead and short that next local high. It never happens. In fact, it doesn't happen until here where you get a nice qualifier. And I do always want to make these a little bigger when I'm on these low time frames, because it might not look like much, but really it's not bad at all, right? So you end up in a situation where you get about a 10 candle run here. You go from 11.646 all the way down to 11.530. Not a bad little move, right, on a 10-minute. And then ultimately, you do get a little red here. So since that popped in here, oh, I'm sorry, I'm outside of my zone. I forgot. So remember, if you lose it on the 1 hour, you've taken that trade, that's fine, but now I'm out of the 1 hour. So remember, this would not be a qualifier. Let's move on. This is qualifying. That's why I have this nice box. So I get it here. Same situation. Once I get it, I'm just waiting for that local high. Establishes itself right here. Perfect. Nice move down. I get another signal. So what am I waiting for? Same thing again. Now this candle might have been too big, so I probably didn't get to participate on this next leg, but you probably were never out of this first one to begin with. Not fully, at least. Maybe you took some profits. Maybe you were only looking for the one leg down. You decided to get out because you were worried about some support bouncing on a higher time frame. I get that. So I shouldn't say that. It's completely up to you. I do get one more signal here, and that's good because ultimately you say, well, let me play it one more time. And sometimes that'll happen, which would have occurred right here. And guess what? You would have gotten stopped pretty quickly. Right here, that happens. You're going to have a loss. We haven't shown too many of those, so I'm glad I got to show a loss again. And again, here we go. I like this because we're getting some choppiness. That's good. So again, what would have happened in this situation? I would have had to go up here, my initial stop, 1 ATR above, just like that. So we do enter right in here. And actually, this does roll back down a little bit. So, although not... Oh, wait a second. I'm messing up completely, guys. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I just did here. Forget the last 2 minutes that I just spoke about. We got to regroup here. I was showing you the 1 hour. And yes, you could see that you can trade off that alone as well. But more precisely, we're trying to do the 10-minute. I knew something was off there, but I'm trying to rush. All right. My apologies, guys. So, here we are. We're in the qualifier here. Again, forgive me. I didn't sleep much last night. And we end up getting one more red. We're waiting for the signal. Little pink dot right there as a qualifier. Thank you very much. And we end up getting a nice couple backfills. So you have to be patient. You actually get another signal, which is good. So you would have rode this guy. You actually get another red here. You end up with like a double, triple position. Everything's looking pretty good here. And then it dumps out on you, which is nice. Another signal tells you go ahead and go for it again. If you get it right there. Another dump out. You do get another signal here. So you might have been looking for an entry if you got one, which would have been here. And you would have got stopped very quickly on that next one. So it worked out very similar to what I showed you in that 1 hour, which is ending in a little bit of a loss, which is good. I like to show that. It's not good to lose, but I don't want anyone to think there's perfection at all. You might roll into this and hit 3-4 losers in a row. It can happen. But I think I've displayed that you're going to hit not only enough winners, but enough pretty sizable winners to more than offset that with this particular indicator. All right, so here we go. We're live right there again. What am I waiting for? Right there, that's my signal, right? That's a qualified signal right there. So I mean, it's basically a double because not only am I getting this, which is telling me to go ahead and get anything that's exhaustion like that, But the fact that it happened right there with a double signal, that's perfect. I'm in. This one is nice because you end up getting it 11, 7, 2, 6. And you can see this was such an aggressive move down. You end up going all the way down to 11, 1, 1. So 11, 7 to 11, 1, 1 when you started on a 10-minute, right? So you get $600. You're going to be pretty happy. But not only did that happen, you had the main signal. You ended up with a re-entry right there. You ended up with a re-entry. So I got 3 positions in one. And then you end up with another re-entry right there, whether you took this one or not. If you thought it was too aggressive, it's up to you. I don't mind these where they go ahead and maybe it's a big candle, but it's to the bottom of a range here. I'm expecting to leg down again, especially if I'm riding 3 or 4 winners in a row. And from the look of this, sometimes what will happen is it just ends up as a double, triple, quadruple position by the time I'm here, which is good. And then red again gives you another 4, 5, 6 in a row, basically. You know, maybe one of these might have stopped you. If it did, that's fine if you were being real tight with your stop ultimately. But the idea is you end up with about 5 or 6 in a row. So not only getting the main one of 600 points, but a series of trades there. And you can see how that works out, right? So I think anyone that's looking at this understands. I like this so far because it's nasty. So let's kind of see what we get here. Okay, so I come in. Remember, it's not qualifying to the box, right? So we're red. Okay, I'm looking for maybe right here. Maybe I said, hey, I took this qualifier. I'm going to short this, right? So if I'm shorting this, I need to have a stop area somewhere around here, which ends up, if I don't take profits here, which I probably didn't, I get stopped here. Let's call that a loss. But what you notice is you didn't get crushed. It's not that you can't get crushed. I just didn't get crushed on this one, right? So I would have said, hey, here's my entry, a little bit above that. Maybe you even went up here. That's up to you. But regardless if you put your stop here or here, if you're setting your risk management right, and send me a message if you need to, if you don't understand that. But ultimately, if you're setting it right, whether it hits here or here, the loss should be the same. You know, you're supposed to set your position off of the distance of your trade, right? So you have to measure that out prior, and that calculation is very quick. Okay, but what ends up happening? We stick with our system, right? So red again here. Okay, I'm happy to play along. Here I get my signal. Good job. But we end up running out, right? So we lose our signal. Let's see what happens. You get stopped. I'm glad that happens. It happens sometimes. We don't want to act like it's perfect, that it's free, that it's going to always print money for us. But you can understand now that I did mention you're not going to have the hit rate that you would before. But here I am on a daily to a 1 hour to a 10-minute, and I ended up catching some real monsters from a 10-minute trigger, which is nice. Okay, that's it for that one. So what I would suggest, now you watch the video, go back now and watch it again, or when you're ready, and take some notes on it and really prepare yourself to understand, because in real time, obviously a little bit different. I'll go ahead and just really quickly, just to end this. Now, in real time, what's this going to look like? You're on your daily, and you say, all right, well, as an example, oh, I'm red, right? So if in this situation you're red, you might just peek at your 4 hour like this. Let's just see, that's right there. Got to shrink this down. So here I am. I didn't go red until this region right there. I would look at my 4 hour, and then all I'm doing is waiting patiently for that red, right? You can set an alert if you want. You do what you got to do. But ultimately, this is where I say, all right, now I'm actively looking on my 10-minute chart. You understand? That's the point where it activates me. And then the other thing you should definitely do is look at the asset, right? If you're paying attention to the asset, because depending on your asset, you might have to mix these time frames up a little bit. So you can go in and create your own strategy as well, right? So basically, we're using the trending, and find something that works. Don't just decide like, hey, it's going to work. You know, do a little work, take some time, spend an hour, look at a chart, and find out for yourself, hey, was this working? Has it been working, etc. Those are things you can certainly do and create yourself, put yourself into a position to have a better understanding for that asset, right? So if I was on XYZ or whatever it is, doesn't matter. I'm going to take a look back in history and say, hey, has this strategy performed well on it? Probably, but ultimately you'll want to make sure and see if that's the case, right? And then again, don't go too low for that last trigger time frame, because you're going to then open yourself up to more choppiness, which means you'll probably get stopped out a few more times. If you like to live on those low time frames, so be it. We'll talk down the road about going to a different type of scalping type of scenario. There's a lot. We can counter trend scalp. We do a lot of different things. This is just 2 versions that I just showed you right now. That's it for now. This is Mr. Anderson. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Again, if anyone wants access that doesn't have it already, just DM me on Twitter and we'll talk about that. But other than that, hopefully everyone's well. I'm out for now. God bless.